What up, cucks? It's your boy, the hater. And this video is basically the conclusion of the, nobody wrestles hater arc, right? Several videos I've made have focused on this notion that nobody wrestles anymore except for basically lower level, low card jobbers, right? Now, the fundamental understanding and the reason why this is even happening in the first place, in my personal opinion, can be attributed to the fact that overall there just is, and we are experiencing as we speak, a complete lack of wrestling talent, right? Now, some of you may be thinking, what do you mean, hater? We have Nakamura on the roster. We've got Kevin Owens. They put great matches on in the indies. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Of course, that part's important too. But that part is easy. Because let me tell you this, right? There's absolutely nothing that Kevin Owens can do in an athletic sense that the average man cannot do. Nothing. Like, the average man of a decent size, right, can lift a jobber like Chad Gable. Like, Chad Gable's like 170 pounds at most, right? Like, I can toss Chad Gable over my head if I wanted to. Maybe, obviously you'd have to help me a little bit. I can't toss him because he is 170 pounds. But I could easily deadlift him, right? I could easily fireman's carry him. I could do all these things, right? I could power bomb him, Like, it doesn't require an insane amount of strength to do these things. All the moves Owens does, like swanton bombs, I could easily do that. Anyone can do that, right? Anyone can learn how to do a swanton bomb. You just fall forward and then just like flip, right? It's an easy flip. We all used to do it at the swimming pool. But anyways, that's not the point here. The real point here is more so about something else. And that something else is the charisma and the mic skills. Nobody has this anymore, right? And that's the thing. In my stream yesterday, some people were talking about Carmelo Hayes. And some of you said, oh, Carmelo Hayes, is him, right? Because that's like his thing, right? And then I countered with, well, Ashanti the Adonis is the Adonis, right? So that, I think that interaction right there captures the problem with wrestling today. Like, nobody has any personality, and everyone has to tell you they have personality, right? If someone, like, let me give you an example, right? We have Megan Thee Stallion, right? Megan Thee Stallion is a pretty good rapper, I would consider her to be like a top 3, top 4 best female rappers of all time, you know what I mean? For me, it's Shauna number 1, but that's me, you know what I'm saying? But like, she has to tell you that she's Megan Thee Stallion, right? These jobbers, these rappers nowadays, and wrestlers too, they have to tell you that they are cool, right? Because if you tune into this shit and you're like, oh, this is Ice Spice, she fucking sucks. And she's not attractive at all. By the way, I made that point before. A lot of people insist that Ice Spice is somehow attractive. It really boils my blood because I'm like, she's not attractive, like, at all. Like, if she's what, like 18, 19? If that girl was someone you knew in high school or college, she would not be the hot girl in any school. You know what I'm saying? In any school in America. But anyways, whatever. That is what that is. Same thing with wrestling though, right? We have a bunch of jobbers, like I said before, masquerading as mid-carders and main eventers. But the reality is that nobody there is good at wrestling, right? Nobody is good on the mic. Nobody is good in terms of having charisma. Nobody can do any of these things. Do you understand me, right? That's just how it is. Like, I don't make the rules. That's just how it is, right? The reality of the situation is that nobody can get it done. Now, some people may be thinking, well, I think Carmelo Hayes has charisma. Well, you're wrong. I'm sorry to tell you, you're wrong, right? Now, you may like Carmelo Hayes, and he may say a few cool things on the mic, but he doesn't have charisma. At least, like, he might be more charismatic than the guy that works at your local Dunkin' Donuts, or your mechanic, or your accountant, or your lawyer, or, he could be more charismatic than any given member of society, but he's not. His charisma, for example, and he's one of the good ones, right? His charisma is nowhere near the baseline, right? There is a baseline level of charisma, right? Because in the past, people would recruit based on charisma. Charisma wasn't something you either had or didn't. Everyone, nearly everyone, had charisma. And quite frankly, the wrestlers that didn't have charisma, like for example, Lance Storm or Steve Blackman, right? Their characters became, oh, these guys aren't charismatic. Right? The entire character of Lance Storm and Steve Blackman are that these are two serious guys who don't want to entertain you, right? Because they're not entertaining. So the only way you can explain them as sticking around is, oh, they're not entertaining, but we all know this. Now, like, Lance Storm is the norm, right? Lance Storm is like Seth Rollins is Lance Storm, right? Like, it's the same exact thing. They're about the same size. Like, Lance Storm was in better shape, of course. Lance Storm was probably tougher in real life. Lance Storm was more athletic. But aside from that, they're the same guy. Like, they don't have, neither of them has any charisma. But, you know, Seth Rollins is like, is going to be a Hall of Famer, and Lance Storm is like a jobber, right? Because the people around them were different, right? As I said before, if you were to give Seth Rollins, like, let's say you have like a hostile crowd, right? Let's just say, this doesn't happen anymore because the crowd is all a bunch of neckbeards, but let's say you have a hostile crowd that's booing everybody, right? Like, Shawn Michaels, even Shawn Michaels, who I'm going to say obviously was charismatic, but he's not like, you know, he's not The Rock either, right? So, Shawn Michaels can go there and turn the crowd around. John Cena can go there and turn the crowd around. We've seen it every week. People would boo Cena, and then he would turn them around. Like, you know, sometimes he would use a cheap pop, whatever, but he would turn them around, right? Like, if you gave Seth Rollins a mic and you put him in front of an audience that hates him, he's not turning that audience around. He doesn't have the raw charisma that is required to make a difference. You see what I'm saying? He doesn't have that, so he can't get it done. And as a result, we find ourselves in a situation where we have all of these jobbers that don't really bring anything to the table, right? Their only, like, contribution is, I can put on a 5-star match. Well, I got news for you, pal. Number one, that's never been good enough. Number two, even if you could, it's not a real sport. So nobody cares, right? I care much more for a 5-star promo than a 5-star match. And looky, milk and cookie. Well, according to Dave Meltzer, the king of 5-star matches, we've had a 5-star match every couple of weeks for the last few years, right? You think wrestling was the best it's ever been. But we all know that's not true. We all know it's not true, cucks. You know? And it is a matter of opinion, but there's a reason why, as far as I know, Dave Meltzer doesn't rate promos, right? Because we all know what a good promo is. We don't need anybody to tell us this guy's a good wrestler, right? Or this guy's a good promo, rather, right? But with good wrestling, like, you look at Nakamura and you know he's not a good wrestler. Like, every fiber in your body tells you this guy is not good at this job, right? He's not good. He doesn't know what he's doing half the time. He's fucking confused. Then you have like Kairi Sane, who really, I'm not even sure she understands what tag team wrestling is. Like, I don't think this girl even understands that what she's doing is like a fake sport. You know, I don't think she gets it at all, cucks. So you have these jobbers that are out there, and it's like, oh, you can't get it done, but, you know, we're gonna lower the standards to the point where we're gonna make it so we can pretend that you can get it done, and then we're gonna go from there, right? And we're gonna determine who is good and who's bad based on just like what people like Dave Meltzer say, right? But for a good promo or a bad promo, everybody knows the difference, right? Now, some people may have an issue discriminating between, like, you know, an excellent promo and a decently good promo, right? But the dichotomy between good and bad, everyone can tell that by themselves, right? So that in and of itself should prove conclusively that promos are the most important part of wrestling, right? And it's the thing that you really want to get right. And what does everyone have in common in wrestling now? Nobody can cut a good promo, right? Like, Paul Heyman, I mean, like, I'm going to say that he can cut a good promo. He hasn't in years, but he can. Maybe you can make the argument that, like, when he, you know, stood up to Solo Sikoa, that was a good moment. That was a good storyline moment, right? But that's what we need more of. We need more of those instead of Roman Reigns coming out and beating people up. I get it. He's not much of a speaker, but he can talk. Like, he can talk enough, right? It's not like I understand, for example, if Roman Reigns was surrounded by, like, Stone Cold, The Rock, Christian Cage, Bubba Ray Dudley, you know, Ric Flair, like Roddy Piper, you know, The Rock. Did I say The Rock? Well, fuck, you know what I'm saying? If he was surrounded, Jericho, if he was surrounded by these guys, and then you're like, oh, we can't really let him talk because he's going to get exposed. But he's surrounded by, like, Andrade and fucking Nathan Frazier and Carmelo Hayes. He can cut, anyone can talk as well as them. Like, literally every person in the world, you teach them, like, one or two things, and they'll be able to pull it off immediately, you know? And that's all we need to worry about here. Is, as I said, this is the conclusion of this entire arc of we need better wrestlers, which I'm sure I'm going to talk about this in the future as well. But the idea is that we need better wrestlers, better wrestling, and more importantly, we need people, we need to raise the standard so that, for example, when it's time to hire someone, there is a 0% chance that like someone like Roderick Strong gets a job, right? It's like, you can't cut a promo to save your life, right? And this guy's been in every company. He's never cut a good promo in his life. It's like, dude, you can't do the job, motherfucker. Like, oh, I can do a good suplex. That's great. That's fantastic. Can you do the other part of the job? It would be like if you had, I don't know, a firefighter that said like, well, you know, like I can climb a ladder really well. They're like, great, can you carry the hose? Oh, no, I can't carry the hose. I'm too weak. But I can climb a ladder. That's great. If we need a ladder climber, then you go do it, right? If we need a firefighter, you got to be able to do both. Same thing with wrestling. Like the profession is called a pro wrestler, but the real, that's just bullshit. That's basically a lie. If the job was like qualified as a real job, it would be just entertainer, right? They're more actors than they are athletes, right? Which is why, for example, we have people like Odyssey Jones, right? Which, I mean, like, he could be a football player, I guess, but like, you know, we have people that aren't athletic necessarily. Actually, he's probably a bad example because he was quite impressive, cucks, but you know what I mean, right? You know what I mean? Like, there's like old people that do wrestling, like Ric Flair, right? He's not very athletic, but he can still do a match because he's an entertainer, right? People will tune in to watch that. That's all I gotta say about that, cucks.